Right.
Wow.
Good morning,
So we don't
everybody.
have a ton of people on. The only thing I could think of is it is maybe if you're taking off for the 4th, you're already leaving today.
Not like people might have had the same problem
Yeah,
I did.
right. I think
Yeah, but
somebody's
usually they
signing in.
call. Joan had the problem, but she just downloaded her regular Zoom.
That's the only way I got in.
Yeah. So they usually call the front desk. So Deanna knows now if they're trying to call, but nobody's called or anything.
Well, I was on the phone with her, so maybe they didn't get through.
I was standing up there. The phone didn't ring while she was talking to
Okay.
you because
All
I
right.
was making sure it worked.
Okay.
Yep. But
I'm really grateful for all that are on here. I wish we had more in attendance because the lease and rentals are such a huge issue in this office,
Yeah.
with our agents. So many questions, so many mistakes, and we really need to get clarity, and that's why we have Sandy on today. So I pray to God we get even more agents joining us, and thank you for the agents that are here.
Wanted to talk about a few things, and I don't know whether you're aware of it, Sonia, but a number of companies in the marketplace are now no longer paying compensation to the co-op broker for a rental. They're having the payment come directly from their lessor. Okay?
I do agree with you, Sandy. I am seeing that in some of their agreements because I'm seeing their agreements as well. And I do have seen that it's actually it's the owner paying the buyer's or the tenant's agent, correct?
So we may have to design a document that allows us to do the same thing. Because now the Cook County Main Street lease, I know, I didn't examine the Chicago one, but it has a place on it to put your compensation that is going to be paid directly by the landlord.
Okay, let's talk after this if you don't mind, and let's go over that. Okay. Thank you for that. Because that is absolutely what I'm working on right now is, leases for our agents now. We're to that phase. And Sonia actually had a question earlier today too. So we were talking about that because she was looking for a Cook County lease and doesn't know where to find it.
Actually, I've uploaded the 2025 Cook County lease, the 2025 Chicago lease, and I uploaded those into broker forms in MRED. I'm sure the office would be happy to upload those as well into the RSA if they're not already there.
Okay.
One thing you should know is that the 24 lease is not the same as the 25 lease. You must use the 2025 lease for both of those locales, both Chicago and Cook County.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Do you want to wait longer? Do you want to talk about other things while we're waiting to see if anyone else comes, or do you want to just get going?
I think we should wait a few minutes. I hate to say it. I know we're at 10:20, but just
one
give
of
it.
the
Let's
things
just.
we've been having some issues with, not pertaining to leases, is the fact that some of you are taking referrals and not uploading those referral agreements into the RSA. This is something that we need to get a handle on so that both doc review and the commission department know when and how and who to pay when you have a closing.
Oh, can I expand on that, Sandy? Because the other issue that we have is if our agents are using like HomeLight, UpNest, OpCity, we also need those referral agreements because a lot of them are not under HomeSmart Connect as an umbrella. It's just agent specific. And then we are overpaying the referral company and underpaying the agent. So that's also something to think of if you work with a referral company. We need that referral.
Another thing you need to be aware of, some of these companies, if they're overpaid accidentally, will not make a refund to you. So please make sure we have the most recent contract that you sign with those referral companies so we know exactly how much to pay them. Okay.
I have a quick question. So I'm using realtor.com and so
on the RSA, I need to upload the contract with them and then
Yes.
referral document filled out?
Yes.
Please, please. Thank you, Sonia. Yes, because yes, that's exactly right. Because the thing with realtor.com that we've learned is the listing side is a different commission split versus the buy side, which is a different commission split. And then on the buy side, it actually varies on the zip code on what the commission split is. So it is actually a variable commission. So that's why we've run into so much trouble with it. So
I didn't know that either.
I know, right? I wish it was just a flat fee across the board, but unfortunately it's not. Okay.
Another,
What else are you seeing, Sandy?
we're having a lot of agents with curiosity on how to get going in commercial real estate. One of the things I would caution you all, I know it's very easy to say, I'm going to just jump in, I'm going to list a commercial property and I'm going to put it on the MLS, but do you all realize our MLS is primarily a residential MLS? And you as residential agents do not really have access to what we call CoStar, which is a commercial MLS. You can put it on LoopNet for, I don't know, is there a charge to put
Yes,
things
it's
on?
about 160 a month. Yes, to put the
Okay.
listing on LoopNet. Mhm.
CoStar, on the other hand, is very expensive. And it may be in your best interest before you jump in to commercial, to co-partner, to co-list with an established commercial agent who can guide you through this process, because there's a lot to learn. It's not it's not done the exact same way as residential. And there are, nuances that you would not be aware of as a residential agent.
Truly, truly, like with commercial, people do not get pre-approved until they are under contract. Completely different. You
Wow.
take the contract to the small business loan company to get your approval afterwards. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of nuances. You're spot on, Sandy. Inspections, appraisals, all of it are 3 times the cost, so many things.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
have, now, I don't know all of our commercial agents. I know a few of them. Sonia, do you know who all our commercial agents are?
That's just actually, thank you for bringing that up, Sandy. Yes, because I have had where I have been trying to refer some of our agents to commercial agents. And one of them I referred to, she said she wouldn't come up here. She wouldn't come up this far. Like it was a lake in the hills. So then I had to refer to someone else that, might not be the best mentor. So really kind of struggling with, we need to find a commercial mentor. I think
Okay.
that should get put on my list of to-dos.
I don't know how many commercial agents we have in our office. Bill may have a better handle on that.
Mhm.
I only know a couple, and I know some of our agents are struggling to find help.
Yes, they are. They are. You're spot on. And I've done commercial for 20 years, but I do not have the time to take that on, sadly. So I can't put myself in the ring.
All right.
Okay. Well, it looks like we are going to just go ahead and get going since we are at, 25 minutes in. So, all right, let's go ahead and start.
So the first thing I want to talk about, whether you're listing a residential rental property, or whether you're representing a tenant on a residential property, it's important for you to understand that the laws as of January 1st have changed significantly for us in Illinois. Every party that is renting their property, every landlord is required to complete a flood disclosure when they list their property for rent. They're required to complete a radon disclosure when they list their property for rent. They're required to complete a lead disclosure if their property was built prior to 1978. Now, some of you, and I know there are a lot of listing agents out there. If you're representing the tenant and you go to show a rental property and there are no flood disclosures, some of the listing agents out there don't understand the law. The law clearly states it doesn't matter whether it's in a flood zone or not. If the landlord says to you, I'm not in a flood zone, so I don't need to do this, that's not true. This requirement stems from the fact that there are tenants who've suffered severe financial losses because they lost property due to the fact that, for instance, the parking lot flooded and my car was ruined and their insurance didn't cover flood damage on their automobile. Or the basement of my condo building flooded and the storage lockers were all flooded and I lost a bunch of stuff. Maybe the sewer backed up. It doesn't need to be in a flood zone. So every party to a rental transaction must complete not one, but 2 flood disclosures. One, prior to entering into the lease, the tenant should be given the flood disclosure that the landlord completed when they listed the property. The second flood disclosure that they will sign is in the middle of the lease. It's actually a part of the lease. If you are using a lease that does not have a flood disclosure inside of it, you are not using the correct lease. Likewise, every party to a rental transaction must be given a radon disclosure prior to signing the lease. And then once again, that is re-verified inside of the lease. Okay? Any questions on that so far? If
No.
in fact you encounter, okay, Joan, I'm sorry, go, did you have a question?
Oh, I said no question.
Oh, okay.
No question.
If you encounter a listing agent who who is unfamiliar with this, I advise you to go ahead and call the managing broker of that office. Because we had a situation about 2 weeks ago where the listing agent absolutely refused. I called the managing broker, brought it to their attention. They said, oh, thank you. We'll go get it. Okay. And I missed a question. Does anybody here have access to looking at that question?
Let me unmute myself here. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see what the question is. All right. So, do flood disclosures have to be used again when the landlord renews the lease? That is a
I-
great question.
I think that is a great idea to protect the landlord. I mean, we're trying to protect them as well as ourselves, okay? And everything I advise you here today is because I want you to be protected. The number one cause of lawsuits in our office are both leases and lack of disclosure, okay? So to protect you, to protect us from claims against our E&O, we need to do everything within our power to protect us from lawsuits. And that means adherence to the letter of the law. And the letter of the law in Illinois says we must supply these disclosures prior to entering into an executed document. Okay. So I would say if you are a good person and your landlord calls you and he says, I'm renewing my tenant that I signed up a year ago and I'm renewing their lease again, I would say you need to provide them with a flood disclosure and a radon disclosure if you haven't already done so. All right. What else? All right. You know, all too often I'm seeing cases where people are not using the Cook County lease for Cook County and the Chicago lease for Chicago. This is critical, guys. You cannot use a suburban lease in Chicago. You cannot use a suburban lease in Cook County. It needs to be the lease with the landlord tenant ordinance as part of it. Now, Chicago has very strict regulations for their leases. Cook County also has very strict regulations. And it will be you that is going to be in trouble if you don't use the correct lease. If the listing agent is not aware of that, you need to bring it to their attention before your tenant goes and signs documents that are the wrong documents. Call me. If I need to make a call to the other broker, we can do it. It's easier to correct something before it's signed rather than wait till after the closing and then upload all the documents, which you shouldn't be doing anyway after a closing. And then we realize you've used the wrong lease. Do you guys understand that?
Yes.
Yes, Sonia.
So I had a client, she started renting about a month ago, and they use their own management company lease form. And they already signed it. They sent me the copy afterwards.
Yeah, well, that's a problem. That's a problem. Because you can be found liable if that radon wasn't in there, if that flood wasn't in there, and if it was in Cook County, if that whole RTLO was not provided to them. Tenants now have rights. They didn't used to, people used to ignore tenant rights. No longer. It's spelled out very clearly in those ordinances that the tenant needs to be aware of what their rights are in this lease. Okay? And that's why we require your tenant to initial this RTLO when it is given to them. All right? What else can we do for you today? What other questions? Sonia, do you have any ideas?
Besides the fact of making sure you use the right lease, I think what all I could recommend is that every agent is calling their village or their city prior, if you're representing a landlord, prior to that to see, does your landlord need to take classes to be a landlord?
Right. Not only that, but do you know that there are some cities that require a permit before? Hanover Park is one of them. You have to have a business permit to rent out your house in Hanover Park. I, as an agent renting a unit in Hanover Park, had to attend 2 days of classes to get a license to represent that landlord in that rental. So wherever you are doing business, you need to call the local authorities. Mount Prospect has very, very strict requirements. They require the owner of the property to attend classes. They have to apply for permits. You have to get a business license. So please call the entity that is the governing body of the city where you are renting or leasing this property and inquire what they require for you to be compliant with the law. Okay? Every
Perfect.
city is
Yes.
different. Some of them actually, Franklin Park, for instance, I believe they actually do an inspection of your house.
Wow.
Hanover Park does as well. They come out and inspect, and they're so picky.
Mhm.
Had one inspection, and the tenant left after 6 months. They required a second inspection to,
Wow. Wow.
and
I
each
actually,
we had to
oh, go
pay
ahead.
inspection as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had where I was representing a landlord, and he wanted to list his home right away, of course, as they always do. But the class was 3 weeks out. And so he was so mad that I was telling him, I am not going live with your home until you are signed up for this class and you take this class that is 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
And so that's something to really keep in mind. You really need to be, make those calls. If you know you have a listing appointment coming up, get on top of it and make the calls before you even go to that listing appointment. Be knowledgeable about when the class is, if it needs to be taken.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Now that not every village has such strict rules, but more
Right.
and more villages are realizing that this is a revenue source for them. And so they charge you to take the course, they charge you for the village inspections, they charge you for a permit. It goes on and on. So probably if you're maybe renting something out in Volo, maybe it's not that complicated. I don't know. But a lot of these villages, they've realized that this is a good source of revenue. And so you need to make sure you're compliant. Otherwise, you're going to be left holding the bag. And if you don't inform the landlord what all these issues are, then they can blame you later if they get fined. Okay?
Andy, with that being said, let me ask you, if a Joe Schmo goes and becomes a landlord without representation, are they held to the same standards as a landlord that has representation?
I believe they are actually by the villages. And I I had a bank call me once. They wanted to they were representing a landlord and they were holding the title to the property because they had a note that was in arrears on this particular property. And they wanted to put somebody in this property so that they could get some revenue. And they thought that they could do it without complying. If as long as they did it by owner, and they tried it and they were fined by the Village of Mount Prospect. And that was a bank, that was the owner of the property. Now,
Understood.
if
Very good to
yeah,
know.
just so all of you know, there are people that have access to the MLS who sit and daily look at listings for the sole purpose of catching other people doing something wrong. These people take great pride in reporting other people's listings that aren't compliant, or looking on the internet for somebody who's doing, many of you have asked me, how do they know that the square footage on my property was incorrect? That's because it's usually the people I'm guessing, of course, that are doing so little business that they have nothing else to do but look for other agents who are doing something improper. So we have to guard against that, guys. Just dot all your I's.
Now, I know we're talking about leases and rentals today, Sandy, but you are bringing up something that I've been wondering, and I'm so glad that I can ask you this. Let's say that your client wants to offer a $5,000 carpet allowance. Are we allowed to put that in the broker remarks, or will that be flagged because they think that we're talking about compensation?
I have been told that that will be flagged.
Okay.
What I would advise you to do instead is to possibly now, even if you put call broker for carpet allowance that'll be flagged as well. Until things calm down after this NAR lawsuit thing, they're overreacting on everything now. So I think it's very difficult. I think it's better for you maybe to put a piece of paper or a sign inside the house saying seller will give you a carpet allowance of $5,000 rather than putting it
Great
on the
suggestion, right? Or will help you buy down your rate or something, whatever you discuss with your seller.
even that rate buy down is being construed by the MLS as trying to convey co-op. So I don't think we want to enter into any part of that, you know. Now, a lot of times when they flag you for errors by the MLS, they'll give you X number of hours to correct it before they fine you. Okay? But if you get on their radar too often, they might not be as generous. Okay? So let's try and be careful about our input. All right? What other questions do any of you have?
Let's hear. Well, Rick just joined us. Hello, Rick. How are you today?
Hi, sorry I
so
was late.
You're great. Do you have any questions about anything, Rick, that you're looking for today about rentals?
No, honestly, I've been shying away from them. I know I can't do that forever, but it's typically what I've been doing.
Yeah, actually, it's a smart move.
Sonia, what is your question?
I have a private listing and my client is keep changing the date to go live.
Yeah.
So, um, and I got a warning from MLS saying that, you passed the date that I indicated. So I just changed it without getting any feedback from my client. Is there like a form that I need to get like signature from
Yes.
my client? Like,
Yes, the listing modification form needs to be completed. And if you are changing the date that it's going to go live into the MLS, you need to alter your private listing network addendum and put a new date. Okay?
sorry, can you repeat that? So I need to get the modification form signed, and what
Yep.
was the other one?
A private listing network authorization form. Usually there is a date upon which you are going to input into the traditional standard MLS. If that date has changed, you need to change that private listing network authorization form. Do all of you understand that you have to have a private listing network authorization signed prior to putting a property in the private listing network?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Another thing I wanted to talk about with regard to rentals is the fact that we have seen numerous lawsuits being brought on behalf of participants in the Section 8 housing voucher program. Do you all understand that if you have a rental listing, ring, ring, the phone rings, a person on the other end says, do you accept Section 8 vouchers? What should your answer be?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. And the next thing out of your mouth should be, please fill out an application or call your agent and have them show you the property. We are happy to work with you. Okay? If your landlord says to you, I do not want a Section 8 tenant, what should you say?
Sorry, I can't help you.
You got it. I think you best find another agent or rent it yourself, because I will not be party to a lawsuit on your behalf. Okay? Now, chances are they're going to rent to somebody who's not a Section 8 tenant, but for them to make the statement categorically that they don't want that tenant is against the law. Okay? Now, I used, back in my former life, before I became a designated managing broker, I had an affiliation with the Arlington Heights Section 8 office, which I worked at. And there are very good people that are Section 8 tenants. There are very good tenants who stay in a property for 10, 15, 20 years, who are wonderful tenants. And there are bad tenants. You know what? It's just like the general public. Sometimes you get a really good person and sometimes you don't. You have to do your due diligence. One of the due diligence aspects is that you are allowed as a landlord to run credit on everyone, including a Section 8 tenant. Okay? Some of these Section 8 tenants have wonderful credit and some of them do not. Some of them keep, well, back in the old days, back when I worked for Section 8, we used to actually tell landlords when they'd call us up and say, is Susie a good tenant? Has she got a good record with you? And we were not allowed to say that Susie was a good housekeeper or a bad housekeeper. What we were allowed to say was, why don't you go visit Susie where she lives and talk to her? And that way you'd get an idea of how she's taking care of her house. Okay. I don't know if that would be allowed anymore because we live in a very litigious society. And so I think it best, if you are representing the landlord, for you to, number one, do the credit. Number two, I want you to have your landlord or you call not their current landlord, because if they're a bad tenant, their current landlord is going to give them a glowing review just to get rid of them. If you call the previous landlord, you will get a more honest answer. And if the previous two landlords give you a glowing recommendation about this person, they're probably a pretty good bet. Okay? All right, any questions about Section 8? And I don't want you ever to ask the question, because I know a lot of people, let's say the rent is $3,000 and Section 8 is going to give them $3,000, let's say, all right, to pay their rent. But you know that they have to pay their heat and their electricity and their water and everything else. You can't say, what is your income? All right. Wait till they have completed their application and look to see if they have enough money left over at the end of every month to pay their utilities. All right. The less questions, the less interaction you have with these people on the phone, the less likely you are to be sued. All right. So treat everyone fairly. Another issue that comes up routinely are emotional support animals and pets and service animals. Unfortunately, because of the world we live in and the internet, thank you very much, I can have any animal I want certified probably in 15 minutes on the internet. Landlords have to be made aware of that. And you have to tell them, unfortunately, you can't say no to a service animal of any kind. All right. Even if it's a condo building that has a no pets policy. all right? Now, another thing that I had happen in my office a couple years ago, we had a landlord renting a condo on the second floor. And he specified to our agent that I don't want anybody with children because there is an elderly woman on the first floor and I don't want her to be disturbed by a bunch of kids running around that apartment upstairs. And he said, I have a right to only rent to adults. And I said, then we must cancel the listing because that is a violation of law. You cannot discriminate against anyone with children. All right. There's a lot of protections for a lot of different classes of people. So you need to make yourself aware of all the fair housing restrictions before you take a listing, whether it's a listing for rent or a listing for sale. We don't ever want to, and unfortunately, a lot of, if it's a fair housing problem, sometimes E&O does not cover those if they feel you were truly negligent and lying. All right.
Sandy, one of the things that we see a lot of is like discrimination, right? Discrimination lawsuits. And so that is also leading to the issue of, let's say you're representing a landlord
Yeah.
and you have all these applications, and now you have to go back to the people who were not chosen and let them know they were not chosen. What's the best way to do that so that you do not get a discrimination lawsuit for turning someone down?
I think, first of all, I would like to tell everyone that this is a decision that should be on the landlord, not on you. You as the agent should not be writing those letters, those turn down letters. I would like to see a letter to each one of those tenants that was not chosen, written by the landlord, and he has to state the reasons why he did not choose them. What is allowed? Inadequate income, if they're not Section 8. Credit was not up to landlord standards. Bad references from previous landlords. Okay. I want that to come from the landlord, to be signed by the landlord. It can be passed to the tenant by you. You can pass it to the other agent, but I want it to be written by the landlord. That takes you out of the hot seat and puts the landlord in the hot seat for whatever decisions were made.
That is brilliant. I'm thinking I should put something together in writing to share with all of the agents so they have this for future as well on how to
Absolutely.
handle that situation, you know.
You know, we have people accusing our agents who are listing agents for the sale of a home that we're being discriminated. Agents are saying, you didn't listen to my offer. I don't know what you're doing. I'm not hearing from. Please, 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 do not think that you can stall to get highest and best by not answering agent phone calls. Do you know how many times a week I get calls from agent? Your listing agent is not answering my phone calls or my text. I've been calling for a week and a half and nobody is responding to my offer. You know that you can be charged with an ethics violation for blowing people off like that? That is totally unfair. Treat each other with courtesy. If you don't have an answer for whatever reason, your landlord can't make up their mind, your owner can't make up their mind between all these different, then call these people back and say, I'm sorry, I do not have an answer for you yet. And if your owner is giving you a really tough time and they can't make up their minds, maybe you need to put that property temporarily off the market. Okay? Any questions?
I like the idea of having a list of what Sonia was talking about.
Yeah. I
Almost like
think
a checklist.
we all need to be careful and protect ourselves. This is our livelihood. We don't want to lose our ability to earn a living, right? So we gotta, you know, every time you get fined for a violation, it digs into your income, guys, and it's not fair. And we want you to be protected, all right? And we want our office to be protected as well. We were,
Absolutely.
Sandy, I have a quick question. In the
Yeah.
beginning, you mentioned about a lot of the landlords not wanting to pay commission to the other side, right? Was that the problem that was happening with some
Oh,
of the leases?
no. What I was saying is that, some of the other brokers out there are saying they don't want to pay co-op commission, that it's coming directly from the landlord to us. So
Okay.
I'm seeing cases where, the landlord is paying directly the other agent. So I think because this is the trend now, I think we're gonna be seeing a lot more, and we gotta talk to our accounting department, a lot more personal checks coming in from landlords to our office rather than electronic deposits rather than certified funds.
Hmm.
Okay.
Gotcha. We do have that form, Sandy, what you're talking about, where when you are a Home Smart agent, you can request payment from the owner slash landlord. We have that form in our leases for
Okay.
rentals, all of our paperwork.
All right.
But what we don't have is the reverse. So I
Right.
see where you're going with this. We need the reverse on that as well.
Yeah. So,
Where
and
we're
as
saying we will pay, the owner will pay for the
if
other
this
agent.
becomes the primary way that our tenants, agents are getting paid, we
Mhm.
better get, I know Coldwell Banker has a document that they send out that says the landlord will be paying the co-op commission.
It's exactly what we need. Okay. And then also there is a question here that I see. And this question is, let me open it up really quick. Are we allowed to list credit and income requirements?
Income requirements, absolutely not. Credit requirements, yes. You can stipulate, I will not take anything under a 720 credit score. But if you do something like that, you better not take somebody with a 650, because then you're going to be accused of discrimination. Oh, you took so-and-so with a 650, but you said I had to have a 720. Okay,
How do you prove that? You know what I mean? I
well,
guess it'd be assumptive in the beginning, and
word
then you
gets
have to.
out sometimes, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
Because I had
Okay.
one of our agents call me and say, my landlord decided to take somebody with a lower credit score because they were offering them 6 months in advance. Well, then you need to go back to everybody with a 720 score and say, I've got somebody willing to give me upfront 6 months rental payments. And so you realize that if you accepted that 650 person because of their advanced payment and you turned down all those 720s, that would be considered discrimination.
Isn't there a way to be more vague on the credit score and not stipulate the credit would just be reviewed, or I don't know.
Yeah, nobody says you have to put in a definite credit score. Absolutely. You can say credit is primary consideration, as well as testimonials or reports from previous landlords, you know. Any other questions?
That was a good one about the credit score, asking about the credit and the
Yeah.
income, because we don't, I mean, we see that so often and don't realize that it is not best practices.
Oh, one other thing I want to talk about, the recent change in the law that says, let's say a tenant applies for your rental property, your listing. And last week they applied for a Remax listing, and they have a credit report from Equifax. We have to accept their credit report if it is sent to us from Equifax, and we cannot demand that they use our applicant portal. All right. And if you want to go into a description, Sonia, about our portal that we have linked to all of our rental listings, I think maybe some of our agents are not aware of it if they don't do a lot of rental listings, but we now have listing to leasing, correct? As part of our system that does our credit reports. All right.
So just to reiterate what you just said, you can use a credit report as long as it was pulled from one of the three, try the three credit bureaus, and as long as it's within 30 days.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, this does not include Credit Karma. That's not a real thing. That's like something for people to build up their credit. That's not a legit, one of the top 3 credit bureaus. Marta had a note and I couldn't read it, went by too fast.
Okay, we got you. We got you. Okay, so let's see. Let's scroll down here. Okay, based on she gave a code HB 4926 effective January 1st. The landlord needs to accept the tenant's provided tenant screening if it is less than 30 days old and meets the HB 9246. What company can we refer our tenants to obtain such a screening that they later can share with multiple landlords? Listing to Leasing does not provide such reports. And that is correct. Listing to Leasing does not. Actually, they did say something when they were promoting us and telling us why we should use them, that you actually can print out all of, if you fill out an application with Listing to Leasing, you can print that all out as the applicant and reuse it at a future date.
But the problem is, if a tenant gives you a report, hands you a report, we can't accept it. It has to be sent from the credit bureau.
Oh, right, because it
Because
could be
it's
fraudulent.
altered. It can be altered if it's printed out. Can we look
So-
into that and find out if we could have it electronically sent?
Yes. Yes, of course. Electronically sent. Okay. Got it. Got it. Because I believe since the applicant is paying for it, it actually, belongs to them.
Yeah,
Kind of
exactly.
like a home inspection for a buyer.
Yep.
Okay. I found a company, Avail, that looks like they support that. Can you look into that company, Avail? All right. Very good. So Sandy, do we have any updates on that? I know they were trying to pass a law that said that applicants could not be charged more than $20,
That
or it was
failed.
going to fall back on the agent.
That failed to pass. That
Amen.
legislation failed to pass, so we don't need to worry about that right now.
That's
Thank
beautiful.
heavens. And just so you all know, I know you get deluged by emails from the board and everybody else, but when you get a call to action email from the Board of Realtors, from your board, from the IAR, please take advantage of that, because these call to actions are you taking a stand against legislation that is harmful to our industry. So when you get a call to action, click on that button and let your representatives and your senators know that this is harmful to our industry. Okay? And that bill that was defeated, it was defeated by realtors contacting their representatives in Congress. Okay?
Beautiful.
Any other questions? Otherwise, everybody get on with their hot day.
Right. And I will post this video since a lot of people need to see this video. This is very
Okay.
informative, Sandy. Thank you so much, as always.
You're welcome. Take care,
Appreciate your
guys.
words of wisdom.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a nice day, weekend.
Bye. You too. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.